Hello! In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create a dungeon from start to finish. We'll begin by creating a theme. To do that, open the theme wizard. The first important setting is the tile size. This determines how large each cell in your dungeon is. For example, if your modules are built on a 3x3 unit grid, you would set the tile size to 3. The wall thickness determines how much space is left between neighboring rooms. For a basic theme, there are 3 required elements: floors, walls, and doors. Corners and ceilings are optional. For doors, we provide 2 different variants. The reason is simple. If one side already contains the actual door or door frame, the opposite side only needs an opening. This prevents 2 doors or 2 frames from being spawned on top of each other. Stairs require a little more setup depending on the model you are using. The blue arrow shows the north direction. Personally, I rotate my stairs so they face in that direction, but the exact placement depends on how your stair model was created. For example, my model needs to connect directly to a wall later, so I have to fine-tune its position a little more carefully. Once everything looks correct, save the theme. Next, we need to add the dungeon manager. Select Dungeon Setup and place the manager into your scene. For this tutorial, we'll focus on the template dungeon. The template dungeon gives you direct control over the general structure of your dungeon. There is also another generation mode for creating an infinite, chunk-based dungeon, but we'll cover that in a separate tutorial. The dungeon manager needs a dungeon template. Inside the template, we use nodes to define how the dungeon should be structured. Every template requires an entrance. You can let the generator create the entrance automatically, or if you prefer, you can already have the entrance placed inside your scene. There is one important limitation to keep in mind. If a path splits into multiple branches, those branches currently cannot be merged back together to create a loop. Now we need some actual rooms. For that, we use the room designer. The room designer gives you a grid that you can use to build the shape of each room. Doors should always be placed on the outer edge of the room. Never place a door somewhere inside the room itself. In my case, I didn't add any corner pieces to the theme, so I'm mainly creating rectangular rooms. But if your theme supports it, you're not limited to rectangles. You can create much more complex room shapes. Back inside the dungeon template, you have two options for assigning rooms. You can directly assign specific room prefabs to your nodes, or you can leave the nodes empty. If you leave them empty, make sure you populate the room pool inside the dungeon manager. The generator will then select suitable room prefabs from that pool. Template generation also supports two different generation styles. The first one follows your template exactly, so the generated dungeon closely matches the structure you created. The second option is more flexible. It allows the generator to insert filler rooms between the important rooms defined in your template. This gives the dungeon more variation while still keeping the overall structure you designed. You can also add random branches, which makes each generated dungeon even less predictable. And finally, Rooms don't have to be empty. If you want to randomly populate them with furniture, decorations, loot, or other objects, you can set that up directly inside the room designer. For example, you could create a category called Furniture. Then, using rules, you can control which furniture can spawn, where it can spawn, and under which conditions it should appear. This gives you a lot of control without having to manually decorate every room. For more advanced setups and detailed explanations of each feature, check the documentation. Everything is covered there in more detail if you want to customize the system further.